The second question that often comes up in these talks is, okay, you've brought this awareness to me, but how do I now pass this awareness on either to somebody else? Often than not, the question comes up about how do I pass this knowledge on to my children? Is there a different technique? Because obviously we're talking about concepts which require some lived experience, but only if we could live our life with this awareness at the age of a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. Imagine what life would be like if we had this understanding of the mind. Sadly, it's not something children learn in school. It's not something that's on the curriculum to learn what the mind is, often because we can't define what the mind is. So we're stuck to be able to talk about that. So you come across some knowledge, you really want to teach it to your children. How do you go about doing that? There's 3 things we can do to start off with. The first thing is, let's really become aware of the language that we're using, because language is our first prisoner. If we're speaking in a way where we are making that emotion a part of us, a part of who I am, then it's very difficult to separate that emotion. So for example, if a child says, I'm sad, what you want to do at that point is to be able to introduce this concept of, I am feeling sad. You're not sad, your whole being isn't sad, you are feeling sad, you're observing an emotion of sadness. And so just by putting in these 2 little words, the interjection of these words, I am feeling, completely changes the picture. Because as I said, language is our first prisoner, and this is the way to break out of that prison. And we can do it too as adults, but especially with children, is to stop it within the language that is being used before it becomes habitual. And habit is hard to make, but also very hard to break. So if we can stop that habit from forming and we're using the word I am feeling instead of I'm sad, what that means is that there is this observer, and you can tell children this, there is this observer, this stillness within you, and you are able to observe that feeling of sadness. If you're able to observe it, it cannot be you. If you're able to observe it, it has what everything has in life, a start, a middle, and an end. Where are you within this feeling of sadness? Becoming aware of this feeling, this emotion that's come up, which is often rooted in the thought, but we sometimes don't go so deep because we work with what the children are actually feeling at that time. So if they're saying that I'm sad, if they're saying that I'm angry, change that to I am feeling sad, I am feeling angry, and there is an observer that is able to watch that. The second thing we can do is to bring some focus and some fun through that focus, through this awareness, because mindfulness doesn't have to be something that you sit in a corner and do. I always say to people, it's not something you do for 5 minutes in the morning and then you switch off and expect your day to be perfect. Actually, it's something that we're doing breath by breath, step by step, sitting, standing, whatever you're doing, you're in a mindful state. It's a state of mind. And so when children are speaking about how they're feeling, you can relate that to a fun character. The child says, I'm feeling angry. You can relate that to a particular type of animal, perhaps one that they are familiar with, something that they play with, something that they know of. When they say, I'm feeling angry, you can say, the angry bull is surrounding you at the moment. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to let this bull win you? Or are you going to be able to fight off this bull? And it could be a character, it doesn't have to be an animal, it could be anything that is relatable to that child at that time in their life. Have fun with it and create a contact with the child, a point of awareness through mindfulness. But you don't have to explicitly say, I'm going to tell you something that's going to be a mindful way of living. What you're doing is introducing the concept of mindfulness by becoming the observer and using these fun characters. Lastly, the most important thing, and the one that no parent wants to hear, is what are you doing yourself? What's your personal practice? Because children learn by observing, right? You can't say, hey, become aware of your anger and make sure that you can remain in a calm state, and somebody doesn't indicate, and when you're driving down the road, you lose it completely and everything's falling apart. So in that moment, it's important to become settled within yourself to show your children that it's okay, we can let that go, right? I'm feeling angry, you can express that, but what I'm going to do is breathe and become aware of my anger. And you can even relate it to a character, the last 2 points. Interject some of those points in with how you're living. So it's not like this is something you should do as a child, this is something that I do, and look how it works for me. This is something you can do, and look how it works for you. And the pattern is repeated, but children love that. So if they see you meditating early in the morning, they can see you there with your eyes closed. The first thing they see is this peaceful state, the state of bliss that you're in. And what that does is it teaches them that maybe this is normalized. This is something that actually I should be observing and doing. And as they get older, because it's embedded in their minds, it becomes a normalized way of living, rather than how the media sometimes called it, a strange way or an Eastern philosophy or soft things. That's not, it's experiential. If you can see your parents doing it, they're benefiting from it, then children are more likely to continue to follow that. So try those 3 things. First of all, becoming aware of the language and putting in those words I'm feeling. Secondly, saying something which is relatable to the child, the angry animal, particular type of animal they relate to, how you're going to feel, how you're going to overcome this animal. What that does is it separates. And the last point is take the personal practice yourself. Do something to role model these virtues of mindfulness. Not only will it benefit your child observing you, but it will benefit yourself, bring you in a state of awareness that the child can then witness and observe.